Welcome to SQE 1 Preparation Criminal Practice, ID Procedure and Suspects Right by Street Lawyer, helping you to pass first time. The FLK Criminal Law and Practice Specification says this: identification procedures, when an identification procedure must be held, different types of identification procedure, and procedure for carrying out an identification procedure, PACE 1984 Code D. What key knowledge is covered in the three identification procedure classes? So you can see class 1, class 2, and you can see what this class is about, which is about suspects' right and the ID procedure. And here we're going to explain the rights of a suspect during an ID procedure, explain the consequences of not consenting to an ID procedure, explain the role of the defense lawyer, and explain what the consequences of a breach of Code D could be. By way of SQE 1 exam tip, you can see what SBAQs may centre on, and you can see the ones in red that I've highlighted for this particular class. Which type of ID procedure should be held, identifying the rights of a suspect are during an ID procedure, identifying possible breaches of an ID procedure, and the consequences of a breach of an ID procedure. There are two test your knowledge questions. The first one is this one, test your knowledge 1. Two sisters have been arrested on suspicion of shoplifting. The police have a witness, a shopkeeper, who believes he would be able to identify the two offenders. Both sisters deny shoplifting and say they were both at home at the time. Because the two sisters look similar, the police decide to conduct a video ID procedure with the images of the two sisters and 8 other images of the other people who all look like the suspects in age, height, general appearance and position in life. The investigating officer, who is also an officer of inspector rank, conducts the video identification. Has the video ID procedure been properly conducted? A, yes. The correct number of images have been shown and the officer is not below the rank of inspector. B, no, 2 separate procedures should have been used with 1 suspect image and 8 in total for the procedure. C, yes, the other images are of people who all resemble the suspect. D, no, the investigating officer must not be involved in the ID procedure. And E, no, the investigating officer must not be involved in the ID procedure, and 12 other images should be used. Then there's the test your knowledge 2. This is from the sample paper, so it's very important you pay note to this one. A man has been charged with robbery. He was not represented at the police station because he declined legal advice. The man agreed to take part in a video identification procedure and was positively identified by one of the witnesses to the crime. The man has a visible scar under his right eye, which was mentioned by an eyewitness in their initial witness statement. No attempt was made by the video identification inspector to conceal the scar on the man's face when his image was placed in the compilation of images for the video identification procedure. A solicitor has now been instructed to represent the man at his forthcoming trial in the Crown Court, where the man will plead not guilty. As part of the solicitor's trial preparation, she has reviewed the images used in the video identification procedure and has noted that only 2 of the other 8 images shown in the video identification procedure show similar looking males with a visible scar under their right eye. The solicitor establishes that as a consequence there has been a provable breach of Code D of PACE 1984. Now, which of the following statements best states whether evidence of the video identification procedure will be admitted in evidence at the man's trial? A, the breach of Code D of PACE may lead the court to conclude that the evidence should be excluded if its admission would be an abuse of process. B, the breach of Code D of PACE will compel the court to exclude the evidence because of its prejudicial effect. C, the breach of Code D of PACE may lead the court to conclude that the evidence should be excluded if its admission would have an adverse effect on the fairness of the proceedings. D, the breach of Code D of PACE will not compel the court to exclude the evidence because its admission would not have an adverse effect on the fairness of the proceedings. Or E, The breach of Code D of PACE will compel the court to conclude that the evidence should be excluded and order that the breach must be cured by the police conducting a further video identification procedure in compliance with the code. And as you know, the test your knowledge answers are at the end of this video. But let's look at the content first. Question: how must the ID procedure be conducted by the police? There's 4 bullet points. Responsibility for the ID procedure not below the rank of inspector, known as the identification officer, see Code D, paragraph 3.11. The identification officer present throughout the ID procedure. The ID procedure must be held as soon as practicable, and to ensure there is no risk of the investigating officer influencing in any way the witness who are taking part in the ID procedure, they will have no involvement in the conduct of the ID procedure. Question: what rights does a suspect in relation to an identification procedure have? This is all contained in Code D, paragraph 3.17. Before a video identification parade or group identification is arranged, the identification officer must explain the following matters to the suspect. And you can see A to G. Pay careful attention to D. A, the purpose of the identification procedure to be used. B, the suspect's entitlement to free legal advice. C, the procedure to be followed, including the suspect's right to have a solicitor or friend present. D, that if the suspect refuses to consent to the identification procedure taking place, such refusal may be given in evidence at trial, or the police may proceed covertly without the suspect's consent, that is by holding a covert video or group identification, or make other arrangements to test whether a witness can identify the suspect, that is by arranging a confrontation. E, that if the suspect has significantly altered their appearance between being offered an identification procedure and the time of the procedure, this may be given in evidence at trial and the identification officer may consider other forms of identification. F, whether before the suspect's identity became known, the witness was shown photographs or a computerized or artist's composite likeness or image by the police. And G, that the suspect or their solicitor will be provided with details of the description of the suspect as first given by any witness who are to attend the identification procedure before the procedure takes place. And please pay careful attention to all these points, particularly D. So a quick summary of the rights of a suspect in relation to an ID procedure. The identification officer, that's the inspector, must explain to the suspect the purpose of the ID procedure, legal advice available, right to have a solicitor present, procedures to be followed. Suspects need not consent, but the ID procedure may still be conducted covertly, and failure to cooperate may be raised at trial. Any change of appearance between notification conduct of the ID procedure may affect the conduct of the procedure and may be raised at trial. Question: what is the role of the defence solicitor attending an ID procedure? This is summarised as follows. A, obtain the first descriptions given by the witness of the suspect. B, objecting to images which do not resemble the suspect. C, making representations to cover up any distinctive marks like a scar. D, make any concerns known to the ID officer, e.g. contamination of the identification procedure, and make a detailed note. Question: what is the role of the defence solicitor advising a suspect about an ID procedure? Well, A, advise whether to consent to ID procedure, and if so, which one. B, advise on the consequences of refusing to take part. That could be a less satisfactory ID procedure, e.g. a group ID or a confrontation being used, or possible adverse inference for refusing to consent to an ID procedure. C, advise on the possible breach of Code D if an ID procedure is not conducted by the police, e.g. it would be a breach of PACE if an ID procedure was not conducted where suspect disputes involvement in an offence and is willing to take part in an ID procedure, and the police have a witness not known to the suspect who believes they would be able to ID the person who committed the offence. That would be a potential breach. Question: what are the consequences for the suspects if they refuse to participate in an ID procedure? Well, it's 2 points there. Less satisfactory ID procedure, e.g. group ID or confrontation, and a possible adverse inferences being drawn for refusing to consent to the ID procedure. Question: what are the consequences where there is a breach of Code D? Example of possible breaches of Code D re a video identification include, and pay careful note to these because these could feature in an SBAQ question. 1. A failure to compile 7 other images of similar resemblance to the suspect. 2. A failure to keep witnesses away from the suspect before or during the ID procedure. 3. Failure to keep witnesses apart before and during the ID procedure. 4. Failure to warn witnesses that the suspect might not be shown. And 5. The investigating officer conducts the identification procedure even if they are of the rank of inspector. The consequences of any breach may lead the court to conclude the identification evidence should be excluded, as it would have an adverse effect on the fairness of the proceedings. Now, returning to the test your knowledge questions, test your knowledge 1, please pause the video, read the question for yourself and read the answer. Look for yourself at test your knowledge question 2, which is one of those sample questions. Pause the video, read the question, take it in, and look at the answer. Remember, watch all the videos in the SQE Prep Criminal Practice series. Understand the functioning legal knowledge being examined by reading the SRA website for yourself. Understand the underlying legal concepts. Revise from a really good SQE book. Attend and participate in class. Prepare Q&A flashcards. Practice as many SBAQs as possible. Subscribe to Community Legal Education on YouTube and put your notifications on so you don't miss out on more SQE Prep videos. Hope you found this class useful. See you in the next class and thank you for watching.